Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're all having a great Monday so far. Just wanted to jump on today and go through some of the latest topics and discussion points that have been going on around the 49ers over the weekend and into today. Really quick before I jump off, just a few of the folks on the comments really quick. We have Daniel says, "Let's go, Jack." Should be a fun show today. And then here's Adrian. What's up, Jack and everyone? Hope it's all well with everybody, with y'all. And it's going to be a fun show today. We have Alan. Thank you, Alan, for joining. He says, Jack, hello, happy Monday. Happy Monday to everybody. This is going to be a fun show, like I said. Let's start off with Deebo Samuel and the latest. We've all probably heard by now, Deebo Samuel is not going to be reporting to the 49ers offseason program, or at least taking part in the – got to be careful with the way that that's worded, because the wording that came down was that he will not be participating in the on-field activities during the off-season program. So he may or may not be actually in attendance in Santa Clara. That'll be something to monitor as the players begin to arrive. The program starts tomorrow, and then the on-field portion actually doesn't start for a few weeks. So the first couple of weeks here is mostly going to be off-field work, stuff in meetings and those types of things. So the on-field work actually doesn't start for a few weeks. OTAs aren't going to be coming up until May. I think it's going to be May 4th, I think was the date that I had written down earlier today. Actually, OTAs, May 23rd and then 25th through 26th. So basically going to be really busy at the end of May, beginning of June, with minicamp coming the 14th through 16th of June. So those are kind of the dates to pay attention to. When you take a look, real quick before I go too further, here's Jeremy Price. Hey, Jeremy, good to hear from you. What up, Jack? Hey, good to hear from you, Jeremy. I haven't seen you for a while, so good to have you on board with us tonight. Couple of things to think about with Deebo Samuel. Number one, this is a change in the way that these negotiations have take place. What we heard today with Deebo Samuel not participating in the on-field activities. Throughout this offseason to this point, it's been, don't worry, the 49ers always do this at the end of in July. It's always in July. It's always in August. That's what happens. It's normal. This is the process that it goes through, yada, yada, yada. What we heard from today with Deebo Samuel not participating in the offseason program, this is a change, though. They haven't had this happen with the guys that they've drafted who have been coming up for big dollar extensions. Go back to George Kittle. He was the first one. He participated in the offseason program. That was a little bit of a wonky season there in 2020 with COVID and everything. So that offseason program was done mostly virtual, but he was in attendance in all of those meetings. But he also did help organize a team activity with the practices that they did out in Nashville, with the quarterbacks throwing to the receivers and DBs were out there and so on, and the tight ends and every running backs, and they were doing their own practices on their own. And George Kittle was out there. He was a big part of that. Then in 2021, it was Fred Warner's turn. Fred Warner showed up through the entire offseason program, and he got paid. So now we're at Deebo Samuel, and Deebo is the first one who says, I'm not going to show up. And remember, these things aren't mandatory. They are voluntary offseason. It's a voluntary offseason program. Deebo Samuel has a $50,000 workout bonus that's part of it. So by him not showing up, he's forfeiting the $50,000, which is small potatoes when you compare that to what his new contract would pay him. So the money isn't the issue here. I've heard people mention that he could injure himself by showing up, and that's accurate. So could have George Kittle in 20, and so could have Fred Warner a year ago. So to say that Samuel should be given, that there's anything really on Deebo's part, there's nothing that he's doing wrong. There's nothing that the 49ers, I feel like at this point, you can't say either side is doing anything wrong. It's just part of the negotiation process. For me, it's more about the fact that this is a change from the way that things have gone to this point. Doesn't mean that it's good. Doesn't mean it's bad. We don't know at this point. I think the next measuring stick in this process we will see come up at the end of next week. Because next week on Thursday is the start of the NFL draft. If Deebo Samuel is a 49er at the end of Friday night, I believe that you'll see Deebo Samuel. That means that would be an indication that the 49ers believe that they can get a deal done with Deebo Samuel. Because if they're going to move on from Deebo, they're going to want to get a first or second round picks for him to try to replace him and find a receiver of his ability, or a few players of that they could fill with the picks that they would get for a Deebo Samuel. So that's your next point in this process is the NFL draft, April 28th through 30th. But the 28th is round one. The 49ers don't have a pick in that round. Second round and third rounds will be on the 29th. If he's still on the team after those rounds on Friday night, expect that would be an indication to me that the 49ers expect to be able to get some kind of a deal done with Deebo Samuel. And then we're kind of back on track as far as the process goes with this playing out, probably towards the July-August timeframe. When you look at those deals done with Kittle and Warner signed his contract extension last year on the 21st of July, and Kittle's came in 2020 on August 14th. That was a little bit later of a start time that year because of everything that's going on with COVID and so on and so forth. So that's kind of where we stand with Deebo Samuel. There's just been so much around him so far this off season, and that's just the next step in this process. So Deebo Samuel not participating in the on-field activities. It's a bummer for Deebo. It's a bummer for the 49ers, and I think it's a little bit of a bummer for the quarterback, Trey Lance, but we'll talk about Trey Lance a little bit here in a minute as well. Moving on to real quick before I jump over, there's a question from Adrian. He says, Jack, what do you think Deebo's value is in terms of draft picks? 2 ones. I think a minimum of 2 first-round draft picks, maybe a second on top of that. I've been pretty steady with this over the offseason. I think he's a top 3 to 5 wide receiver in the NFL. He's one of the best, and if the 49ers just let him play just wide receiver last year, his numbers would have been really good. I mean, they were good as they were, 1,400, but they probably would have been over 1,700 yards if they just let him play wide receiver the entire season. So, and I think he finished 5th in the league with where he was with the reduced targets that he had over the second half. So if you're asking me what Deebo's value is in terms of draft picks, 2 firsts minimum, maybe even 2 firsts and a second, just because he's that valuable to the 49ers, quite frankly, with everything that he can do. And then you throw on top of that the Trey Lance coming through and coming up. I think that you're going to see Deebo Samuel, if he's with the 49ers in 2022, have a big year. You're going to see his numbers jump even further than what you've seen before, because he's going to finally be able to be taken advantage of more down the field than we've seen so far. We've seen them do a little bit with it with Jimmy Garoppolo this season. I think we see that take another step forward with Trey Lance in 2022. And then Victory Street Ministry says, culture is so important. No player is bigger than the team. I love Deebo, but holdouts have terrible effects on teams. I would take a young wide receiver like Elijah Moore and a first and third round picks. We're not at that point. We're not at the holdout point yet. That won't come until end of July, beginning of August, when the team starts training camp. Because remember, this is all at this point voluntary. So there's no holdout. It's just that they're choosing not to show up. So it's a little bit different. And then in terms of a young receiver like Moore, I think we just have some folks there's a lot of people undervaluing the things that Deebo Samuel can do that other receivers in the league can't. Deebo Samuel does things with the ball that we haven't seen happen in a long time around the NFL from a player at that position. KW2421 says, if we lose Deebo and Jimmy's still here, Lynch should get fired. Agree. I don't know if I'd say get fired, but there should definitely be some strong push behind them. There should definitely be a fire underneath his seat if that's what happens. I don't know about actually Lynch getting fired, but there should definitely be some upset folks around the 49ers, and the organization, and from outside, there should definitely be some serious questions asked of their decision-making process if Deebo Samuel is moved and Jimmy Garoppolo is still a member of the 49ers after this, when the season starts. And Paul, thank you very much for the reminder. If you guys could hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're already subscribed to the channel, that would be fantastic. I would love it. It'd be very helpful for me and for trying to grow this channel. And the more likes we get and the more comments we get, the better the algorithm works out. So if you guys could help out on that, that'd be fantastic. Moving on really quick off of Deebo Samuel, though, another one I wanted to speak about was Javon Kinlaw. Big Javon, I don't know if you saw it. I tweeted this out earlier, so you can go take a look at it over on my Twitter. But they posted a second workout video with Javon Kinlaw in Santa Clara, doing some running again with those resistance bands, pulling them back. So yes, he is actually pulling something. So I made a little bit of joke on the picture there on the video about how it looked like he was pulling a piano, and that's because he is. He's actually pulling a resistance band to help with explosion. That's what all that's about. That resistance training is for explosion. There were some video of him also in that clip of him working on the they call it the jammer, which is this kind of a motion. It's a really good explosion movement and workout for offensive linemen and defensive linemen. It simulates that explosion off of the line of scrimmage. That's what that does. So if you get a chance, go check out that video. Javon Kinlaw for the 49ers is a big key for the 2022 season. You know, they lost DJ Jones, and the expectation there is that Javon Kinlaw is going to be replacing him, and that he'll be the guy to step in and fill the gap. And Javon Kinlaw to this point has been a little bit of a disappointment, to say the least. A lot of that goes back to the knee injury issues that he's had going back to college, and they feel like they finally got it figured out. You know, he went to a specialist. They did some different surgery on it. They feel like they basically were able to get rid of all the issues, the things that were causing the issues in his knee. So that's positive. And the other positive is that he's been working. His rehab has been coming from under the tutelage of the folks that worked with Nick Bosa, who was coming off a knee injury after the 2020 season. That's who Javon Kinlaw had been working out with prior to coming back up to San Francisco or Santa Clara and working with the 49ers group. So there is reason to believe that Kinlaw is going to be healthy, that he has maybe passed some of those issues that he was dealing with in the years 1 and 2 of his career with the 49ers. So again, this is a key piece to the 49ers for 2021 is that interior pass rush. They lost DJ Jones. I think that interior pass rush is going to be strong. The only issue there is the run defense. Is that run defense going to be able to be quite as strong without the big defensive lineman there in the middle? Javon Kinlaw has been a run stuffer of sorts in his career to an extent, not quite as good as DJ Jones. He's a step below that, but his athleticism gives them, I think, a better combination of run and pass. So big key for the 49ers here in 2021 will be the status of Javon Kinlaw. So definitely something to keep our eyes on. But the information that we saw today with the video is definitely another step in the right direction, just as we saw with the previous video. And then also on top of that, the Mike McGlinchey video from last week. That's big news for the 49ers offensive line to have him working his way back, doing many of the same type of movements that we see of Javon Kinlaw. And if Mike McGlinchey is healthy and able to start week 1 at right tackle for the 49ers, a lot of these questions that we've been hearing about that offensive line go away. So those are two big things to keep an eye on, Javon Kinlaw and Mike McGlinchey in their rehab as we go through. And like Bolivar says right here, he says Kinlaw is working out with McGlinchey. So there you go. They're both in Santa Clara. They're both going through the work. So, you know, we'll see what happens. And Bay Gibson has a lot of faith here in Javon Kinlaw. He says he's going to be the defensive player of the year. So that's a lot of faith to put in him, and we'll see how that goes. But definitely been a lot of positives around Kinlaw, and you got to love the fact that anyone who can enjoy fried squirrels and biscuits and gravy plays for the 49ers. So definitely some things to keep an eye on there. Javon Kinlaw, Mike McGlinchey. And then moving forward, you know, those are the kind of the trenches and what's happening there. We have the one other piece that's come up recently is this isn't going to go away until the 49ers make a move with Jimmy Garoppolo, but Trey Lance, and the latest on Trey Lance, and the latest that we heard over the weekend was that Trey Lance has received indications that he is going to be the starting quarterback of the 49ers in 2022. That was a report from Jeremy Fowler that came out over the weekend. It's an interesting one because if you go back to the week of the draft, not the week of the draft, excuse me, but the week of the Super Bowl, Trey Lance was on a podcast with someone from NFL Network, and they were talking about the what he heard from the 49ers, what he was told by the 49ers during his exit interview, and he wasn't told that he was going to be the starter, but that's the goal. That was what he said. He was. The expectation is that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be traded. He was asked if he was told there'd be a competition at quarterback. Trey Lance's response to that was no, and he kind of chuckled about that no, there wouldn't be a quarterback competition. And then they asked if he was asked if the 49ers did move Jimmy Garoppolo, does he expect to be the starter? And Trey Lance said, yeah, I expect to be the starter. Well, at least that's what I expect. And then he kind of backtracked himself from there. So this has been floating out there for a while. This isn't any kind of new news. If you've been paying attention to the 49ers and what's been said by the 49ers, there was nothing that Jeremy Fowler said that should have come as really news. Just go back to the owners meeting earlier, last month, and you had Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch both talk about Trey Lance, and in particular, Kyle Shanahan was asked if they had the belief that Trey Lance could be the starting quarterback this year, and the answer was yes. If we didn't believe Trey Lance was going to be the starting quarterback in 2022, we wouldn't be trying to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. So again, this is a for me, this is something that I find interesting as I go through and we go through the off season. And I understand that it's a long off season, but I find it interesting as I've always felt this way, but it's now in particular as I'm doing it myself, and the way that these stories just kind of evolve out of nowhere. It's a piece of information that was talked about 3 weeks ago. It goes through the cycle, and then it kind of people lose it, and then somebody throws it out there again, and it becomes a story once again. Because this Trey thing has been recycled probably about 2 or 3 times already to this point, and we're not even to the draft yet. So it's just part of the way the news cycle works. Is you have some news, and then you let it dies down. It's not news anymore, and then somebody brings it up from a different angle, and all of a sudden it becomes news again. And so Trey Lance, yes, he is expecting to be the starting quarterback, and I would fully expect him to be the starter once they get to training camp this year and throughout these. You already know he's going to be taking the number 1 snaps with the 49ers throughout their offseason program. Jimmy Garoppolo won't be able to throw until July at the earliest. And so it just based on the schedule and the way that lays out, May through the 16th of June being OTAs and minicamp, it's going to be Trey Lance's time to shine throughout those. So if you're a Trey Lance fan or you believe in Trey Lance, now's the time to make sure you're back on the bandwagon. Don't slow down from where you were if you felt like he should have been the starting quarterback last year. Now is the time to keep talking about how great you think he is, because he is going to be the starting quarterback, I believe, for the 49ers in 2022 when all is said and done. Bolivar asks, any news on Banks at left guard? No new news. The expectation, as they said, was that he is going to be stepping into the starting lineup at some spot. I would expect to see it be left guard. Right now, the way that it looks is if Mike McGlinchey is healthy and Alex Mack stays, those are the 2 question marks, really, right? The health of McGlinchey at right tackle, the decision from Alex Mack if he's going to stay with the 49ers or not. Let's say that the answers to both of those are a yes. You're going to have Alex Mack at center, Mike McGlinchey at right tackle, and really at that point, the questions around the 49ers offensive line go away for the most part. You lose your left guard, but you have a number of guys that can replace him. I think if McGlinchey's healthy, fully healthy, and the 49ers decide to keep him, which may not happen, right, because of his salary cap hit and so on. If he's healthy enough to play and they go with him, then you're left with, I think, maybe Jalen Moore competing with Brunskill for the right guard spot, or maybe it's going to be Jalen Moore sliding in at left guard and Aaron Banks fighting with Brunskill for the right guard spot. I think that's the main thing. And then you have Justin School and Colton McKivitz and these other guys, all these other, the backups, the guys that have been backups for a while with the 49ers, they're going to be fighting for spots. But they have a number of offensive linemen with history of starts. Like I said, School and McKivitz and Jalen Moore have all started, and they're going to have some role with the 49ers, I believe, this year. The draft will be interesting. I think when it comes to the draft, you're going to see the 49ers try to take a center for 2023. Another piece that's interesting, and this is off of the Trey Lance topic, is when you look at these contracts that come out really quick, and just having a quick discussion on contracts, is you see the guaranteed money, and then you see it's really broken up into two parts, right? There's the guaranteed at signing money, and then there's the guaranteed money. So, like, for example, with the 49ers, the largest guarantee that they've given anybody is Jimmy Garoppolo, is $74 million. The next largest is Trent Williams. Trent Williams signed a deal when he did his new deal with the 49ers. It was $40.1 million guaranteed at signing, with $55 million guaranteed total, 55.1 guaranteed. An interesting piece that I found out over the weekend is that with Trent Williams' deal, $5 million was guaranteed for his 2023 salary by him being with the 49ers. They picked that up on April 1st when he was still with the team. Now, next year, after this season, there's another $10 million guarantee for Trent Williams' contract in 2023 if he's on the 49ers after after April 1st of 2023. Okay, so if he's on the team as of April 1st of next year, he gets another $10 million. So his total guarantee in the 2023 season is going to be $15 million. The interesting part about that is that if that occurs, it's basically the 49ers opting into his contract for 2024, 25, and 26. Now, I would expect to see that happen because the dead money, the dead cap hit is so large for them to move off of him after 2022. It'd be over $19 million of dead cap. So I would expect to see him there. But again, that's something to think about as you look at these contracts, and in particular with Trent Williams and his deal. That's why I say when it comes to Deebo Samuel, really quick, just going back to our original topic, I don't have a problem. I expect to see him. I would think that he should get somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 to $70 million guaranteed with his new contract with the 49ers. The guaranteed at signing piece is where it'll get interesting, and they could keep it as low as $20 million or so like that, based off of signing bonus in year one of salary and those kind of things. They could keep it down, but I think that you're going to see a big overall guarantee for him in the $60 to $70 million range. So it'll be a little bit lower than Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, but more than what you've seen out of Trent Williams. So that'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. Really quick, just looking at as far as getting a deal done with Deebo. Again, so as far as getting a deal done with Deebo, we're going to know the answer to this by next Friday, because next Friday will be day 2 of the draft. If Deebo Samuel is still with the 49ers after Friday, that's an indication from the team that they feel like they're going to be able to get a deal done with Samuel. And so at that point, I would say that I feel like it's going to happen. I believe that they're going to have a done deal, but an actual indication of the process and what their feeling is will come up by Friday of the draft, because they're not going to want to wait until Saturday. They're not going to want to get a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round kind of pick for Deebo Samuel. They're going to want to get picks really in round one, which means Thursday night, by Thursday of next week. Worst case scenario, Friday, having multiple second round picks and so on. So with maybe a first next year, but I don't see them wanting to do that. I think they want to get those first and second round picks in this draft so they can try to find players to replace them. And don't think that I don't think that they're going to move on from him. I do think that Deebo Samuel will get the money. And no, I don't think I agree. I don't think it's a diva of him at all to ask for more money. This is his first contract, and when you look at the other receivers that are the top receivers now, getting these new deals like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs, he matches up really well with him. And one thing is, Tyreek Hill was a one-time All-Pro when he got that second deal. Same thing with Deebo Samuel. And Tyreek Hill, when he got his first deal after year 3, became the second highest paid wide receiver in the league. So I believe that you're going to see Deebo Samuel somewhere right around those numbers that Hill and Adams and Diggs received. I think probably, you might see a structure closer to the way that they did the Raiders did the deal with Adams, but with the guaranteed money in that range as well, because Adams' overall guarantee is $66 million. So I could see that kind of working out for Deebo there. The carrots behind me. What do you mean? One of those carrots behind me? Those are what I found for Easter. Got the carrots right there. See, really what I'm doing is I dangled the carrots behind me because that's for Deebo to try to get him to sign with the 49ers. We're dangling the carrot there, trying to get him. You got to keep the carrots dangling to keep people working hard. So that's what we've got back there. And then Alan asked, Jack, what do you think of Jennings, Ray, and Ayuk working out with Lance? I think that's great. The more work that you can get together, the better. And, they're all out here working out in California. And so might as well spend some time together. It sounds like Lance and George Kittle might be getting together for some workout time as well. So it's all good news for the 49ers for those guys to be working out. The more routes you can run and throws that you can have and timing and all that kind of stuff, the better. So it's definitely a step in the positive direction for Lance to be working out with his teammates. It's a little bit of a bummer that Deebo isn't out there with them as well. We'll see how that works out. I know Deebo Samuel's primarily working out in Florida, so we'll see if Trey Lance goes out that way or not as part of their process over the summer. Like I said, they're reporting to Santa Clara tomorrow. Really probably showing up, getting their stuff ready today, but they'll be at practice, at the facility tomorrow working out. So it'll be interesting to see how that all moves forward as they go along. Real quick. Big Gibson says Jalen Moore going to play right guard, Banks going to play left guard. Yeah, I would agree. I think that seems to be most likely. If Mike McGlinchey is healthy, I think you're going to see Banks at left guard, Moore, Brunskill competing for the right guard spot. Let's say McGlinchey is healthy and Alex Mack leaves. I think at that point, then you might have Brunskill maybe even sliding over to center with Moore playing right guard. And then you have a rookie that can compete with Brunskill for that starting center job. There's all kinds of different scenarios and machinations you can go through with this. And then Ken says we do need RB3. And that brings me to the next and final topic that I had put together for tonight, which was the 49ers going through their pre-draft visits. There was a few names that popped up today as well. Before we get to the running backs, though, let's talk about the safeties, because that's the big one that showed up today, and that was the safety out of Penn State, Jaquan Brisker. It was announced that the 49ers were going to have him in for an official visit of their top 30. So that's a big deal. The 49ers were out at Penn State for the pro days a few weeks back, so they saw Brisker running and lifting and doing all those things during his pro day. So they were able to get some intel on him there. And then now to have him actually coming out for a visit in Santa Clara, that shows that they are very interested in Brisker as a safety. And the 49ers need to add a safety there. I've talked about this a little bit. They do have Jimmy Ward. Ward's in the final year of his contract, though, so this is kind of the time to maybe bring in a guy that can start this year alongside Ward and then take over for Ward next year with Hufanga, or maybe it's Hufanga starting in the secondary next to Ward this year with Brisker or a safety, depending on who they're able to bring in replacing him. So the names so far, the safeties that the 49ers have brought in, they brought in Brisker's is scheduled. They also brought in Vontae Davis out of Utah. And then another one that I really like is Leon O'Neal from Texas A&M. O'Neal is similar to Brisker in that the 49ers were out at Texas A&M for his pro day as well. So they were there for the pro day. They've now had him in for a visit already. So a couple of really good receivers there. And do the 49ers, the question really around Brisker is he going to fall far enough for the 49ers to be able to get him? Or do the 49ers have the ammo to move up? And again, there may be a trade here brewing that allows the 49ers maybe with a player and picks to be able to move up without having to completely, give up so many picks to get up there to get Brisker. So that's definitely a question mark there. The other position that the 49ers were announced today to be having coming in, and this is another one where they've had multiple players show up for these top 30 visits, is the running back out of North Carolina, Ty Chandler. So Ty Chandler will be coming into Santa Clara and meeting with the 49ers as well for a top 30 visit. Hey, Kim, good to have you on board. So the interesting part about Chandler is he's a pretty good back out of the backfield. Same thing with the 49ers also have met with Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati, Brian Robinson out of Alabama. Those are guys that they've had in for top 30 visits. They also met with James Cook out of Georgia during the combine. But when you look at a guy like Chandler, he kind of fits what the 49ers I think are looking for. When you go back to the topic that the question up here where Ken Martin says they need a RB3, that's a guy that's where Ty Chandler falls into place. Chandler would be an addition later in the draft. They don't have to use a second or third round pick for him like they would I think for I think with a guy like Ford or maybe even Robinson, you're looking at those guys going in the third round. A guy like Chandler is going to be there on day 3. Good back out of the backfield, somebody that could come in and take the place of Jermichael Hasty as your third down back. The 49ers need to upgrade that position. We've seen them really be stringent with the way that they lock their running backs into the rotation. At least they were in 2021. They were almost always, you knew when it got to third down, you knew that Jermichael Hasty was going to come onto the field. And so if you can upgrade that position with a guy like Ty Chandler out of North Carolina, that'd be a good move for the 49ers. So just really quick before I go to some of the questions. So the safeties, Jaquan Brisker coming in from Penn State, already have had meetings with Vontae Davis out of Utah and Leon O'Neal from Texas A&M. The running backs, Ty Chandler coming in from North Carolina. They've already had visits with Jerome Ford from Cincinnati and Brian Robinson from Alabama, and also met with James Cook from Georgia during the combine. So a lot of information around two positions that we've heard a lot of smoke around the running back and definitely now at safety. So that really kind of gives us an idea of what the 49ers are looking for there, or kind of maybe a position that they're going to. And as far as, limiting the Deebo touches, I agree. And I think that you're going to see that's another piece of that. You know that you're going to get some carries out of Elijah Mitchell. I would expect to see some Trey Sermon more involved with the offense in 2022. And then you get your third down back that's running. And then The fourth guy, maybe even they keep Jermichael Hasty, and the fourth guy is, that the guy that leaves is Jeff Wilson Jr. So it'll be an interesting room as they put that together. We know that I think they're going to draft one, and we'll likely see them even probably sign another one after the draft. Bernil Jacobs asked, Jack, do you think we draft multiple safeties early in the draft? Where is a free agent next season, and they could possibly replace him as well? Well, that's what I think is going to happen. That's why that's what I was mentioning earlier. Between Brisker and Davis and O'Neal, I think you're going to have one of those guys at least maybe be brought in as a potential replacement for Jimmy Ward. Ward is on the final year of his deal. And I thought that there would be more discussion around a new deal in place for him, but there hasn't been any word on that yet. So as far as drafting multiple safeties, maybe, but I feel like the 49ers really like Talanoa Hufanga. I think they like a lot of what he brings. They felt like he needed to. They utilized him quite a bit throughout last year, not as a full-time starter. He only got the 3 starts, but he played snaps at safety on a fairly regular basis every week. And I think that was all part of them trying to get him ready for a bigger role here in 2022. So I would expect to see Talanoa Hufanga start next to Jimmy Ward this season. And then, maybe there's a guy like Brisker or O'Neal or Davis who are brought on to be kind of to be in the role that we saw of Hufanga last year, where they're learning the position and getting ready to really take over in 2023. So we'll see what happens there. Cam with the name he throws out, I'd look at Jerry and Ely, running back out of Ole Miss in the later rounds. Tom seems to agree with you on that one. Good third down back, pass catcher, makes people miss. I'll check into him a little bit more and see what's going on. But definitely, I think, and maybe that's a guy that they go with late in the draft, or maybe even as a undrafted free agent type of a signing. So we'll see how that works out. But I think we're going to see the 49ers, like I said, they're going to bring in at least one, probably 2. I don't see them going into camp with only 4, which they have right now. So that'd be, maybe 2 more. So maybe a draft pick and a late round guy. They'll be in the running back room. They definitely did update there a little bit, or upgrade there a little bit. And like Bay Gibson says, another good one here, Trey Greenlaw getting traded on draft day. There you go. That's another type of a move to help with moving up from where they are at 61 to maybe move up a little bit higher in round number 2 to get a guy like Brisker if he's falling down to him a little bit. And KW2421 asked, do you think they draft a punter? And I wouldn't be against them drafting a punter if he can kick off, like Matt Araiza out of San Diego State, for example, is the one that everybody seems to talk about. But if they can draft a punter that can kick off like that, Araiza had 72 kickoffs, I believe it was last year. 63 were touchbacks. The 49ers could really use a guy that could kick off and put the ball in the end zone on a regular basis. They haven't had that the last couple of years. I think that plays a role into the poor starting field position for the defense, obviously, along with some of the turnover issues they've had. But if they can get a punter that can kick off as well and put that ball in the end zone, I think it really helps the 49ers out. Slot corner priority in the draft. It's a position that I think they'll look at. I don't know if it's a priority, but it's a spot they'll look at it. They have a few guys there right now. Unless they feel like Diamador Lenore is their long-term solution at slot corner, then they will be looking to fill that spot. But it really depends on what their belief is with Diamador Lenore. Let's see. And then Kim always wants to know about the call-in shows, and I definitely need to do another call-in show. So I will do one of these again soon in terms of a call-in show. That'll probably come up either over the weekend or next week. That's not going to happen this week. My schedule, I'll be on tonight, just so everybody knows. I'm on tonight. I'll be on tomorrow night with Sunil, and then I will be on Thursday night with Jesse Naylor for the Hammer and Nail show, and then I'll likely be doing a show on Friday as well in the afternoon. Uh, don't have a set guest list yet for Friday, but definitely we'll be doing a show here on this channel tonight. We'll be back on Tuesday, and then I'll be back on Thursday with another one. Like I said, Friday we'll see what happens there. But that gives you an idea of what the schedule will be for the channel throughout this week. So, just taking a look really quick at the questions. Who's your draft crush this year, Jack? I don't think I have a draft crush uh, at this point. I would say the closest thing I have to a draft crush would probably be somebody like Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. I really like what I saw out of him. He's a really good runner, a guy that I think fits a lot of the needs that the 49ers have. So that would be somebody. Jerome Ford there. Noah Ellis is an interior defensive lineman and out of Idaho that I think is going to be a steal for somebody in the mid to late rounds. His dad was a defensive lineman for the Pro Bowl defensive lineman at that for the Detroit Lions back in the day. He ended up he's actually he was a really good player. He'd been recruited to play at Mississippi State, ended up at Idaho though because of concerns with his academics. So that's why he ended up there in Idaho. But that's a really good one as well. And then Marcus Jones, I understand a lot of folks really like Marcus Jones, and I do too. That's one that's a big one. Tyler Linderbaum, if he falls into the second round, I think that would be a surprise if Tyler Linderbaum falls into the second round. I don't know if the 49ers I still don't know if the 49ers would have the ammunition to move up to get him into the top of the round. That's still a lot, even, because they have the first round pick and the 2/3. I think it would cost all of that plus maybe a little bit more. I don't know how the draft valuation chart works, but even getting up into the top, late 30s, I think is a tough deal for the 49ers there. So we'll see how it works out. I think you're looking when it comes to centers that the 49ers are going to draft. It's going to be more towards the line of Alec Lidstrom out of Boston College or Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska. Those seem to be the top two. And then there's the center out of Kentucky as well. Those are the Luke Fortner. I think those are the three. I would believe that Fortner, Lidstrom, and Jurgens have more of a chance of getting to the 49ers than Tyler Linderbaum following to them. Let's see what else we have here. After 2022, 49ers only have one starting linebacker signed. Moore, Williams, Banks, and Mack, only offensive linemen signed as well. This is a huge draft for the 49ers. I agree, and I think that's partly why, I said earlier in terms of the I think in the draft when it comes to their offensive line that start there, I think you're going to see them get a center. I don't know about a tackle, but I think if they get a center, they feel pretty good about that, and then maybe they can, if they want to move off of Mike McGlinchey and they're able to move him by a trade, that's where Jalen Moore slides over to right tackle, which is a really natural position for him, and kind of what he's played throughout the majority of his time in college. And then in the first year with the 49ers, he didn't really play a whole lot of. I think he might have played guard a little bit at Michigan, Western Michigan, I think it was, in college. I don't remember seeing him really play a whole lot of guard stuff with the 49ers last year during training camp and so on. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And then you're right, with a linebacker crew there, the only one that you have is Warner, Azeez Al-Shaair. That's why the whole Dre Greenlaw, I'm not sure if you move off of Dre Greenlaw. Do you feel like you can get a cheap deal done with Greenlaw to keep him around? Or is it going to be expensive to keep him? So there's lots of moving parts. The 49ers definitely have some numbers issues past this year that they're going to have to work around. I haven't heard anything about the DB out of USC. But if you say it's solid, I trust you. I know you're um, a big defensive back guy, Moses. Thanks for joining, Jason. Sorry you missed the beginning of the show. Yeah, the internet issues. That's what I usually deal with, but I've got some good ones with where I am now. Much better locked up. Good to have you on board, Niner Sickness. Thanks for joining. And let's see what else we've got real quick before we. I think that's what you say there, Kim. Linebackers, running backs are found developed by the Foreigners in the late rounds, or UDFA, a big need for O line. I'd trade Greenlaw for another asset, and that could be in the offing, right? They did pick up George Odom, who is a linebacker, who is a safety. They picked up Warren Burks, who has the history of playing linebacker. So we'll see how that works out for the 49ers as well. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it off for the night, but I want to say thank you to everybody that took the time to log in. We're going to be back, like I said. I will be back tomorrow night with Sunil for the 49ers throwback episode on Tuesday that we always do on Tuesday night. Then I will be back on Thursday with Jesse Naylor for the Hammer and Nail show. So keep it locked right into this channel. Like I said, thanks to everybody who took the time to join. If you could do me a favor, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and even the little bell notification so that you don't miss any of the shows when we go live. That'd be fantastic. And last but not least, get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com so you can check out all the new articles that go up over there as well. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll be back tomorrow. Take care.